was going on.
A D.C. homeowner claiming an Airbnb guest has overstayed their welcome and will not leave. In this story you'll only see on 7 News, we're digging into D.C. law, finding out there's not much that homeowner can do. Our Washington, D.C. reporter Felicia Ashley spoke with the homeowner and tried to speak with the alleged squatter.
The alleged squatter originally got into the home through Airbnb, claiming that her apartment caught fire and it needed time to get repairs. Now, that was back in February. Roshane Douglas says she didn't know she was opening her life up to a nightmare when she accepted Shadija Romero's Airbnb reservation almost 10 months ago. That reservation ended March 29th, after 32 days, and Romero hasn't paid another dime. But living in the home for over a month apparently lets her claim some form of tenant rights, and she refuses to let Roshane enter the property.
Now, this is a video that I did the other day, but I've noticed more and more people are sharing it. However, there were some audio issues that day. I was just putting in a new system. I had to figure it correctly. So I'm happily re-recording because this is my specialty. Probably my biggest business was a corporate housing company that stretched from California all the way to Texas. So because of that, I pretty much specialized in doing short-term rentals. I didn't want anyone long-term, and there was just more money with the short-term people. I have had this situation happen a few times. There are ways that you have to handle it, and there are ways you cannot handle it. First things first is people know you are alone. If you're a woman, you are meat. They are not going to be afraid of you. People at the end of the day are worried about how far the property owner will go. They'll look at certain people and say, this person's afraid to go to jail. They're not going to do nothing to me. I can just stay here. They're going to just go through the courts, let them sue me, blah, blah, blah. You have to let them know without saying it that you're not one of those property owners. I'm not just going to pay the mortgage at my property that you stole from me. Some people are just not going to let others take from them. And we are going to do whatever we can or whatever we have to secure what's ours. That is part of what being an American is. Now, just because I want to branch out and do business does not mean you have the right to abuse the fact that I am an entrepreneur. Just because I'm renting out my house short term and you find an exploit doesn't mean that I'm just going to let you have it. You have to let them know that there are people with you. And you also have to let them know that if you're going to be staying in my house, we are going to be staying in my house. Legally, the only thing you can do is find some crazy people somewhere, maybe some homeless people, maybe some friends or relatives that are maybe riding the line of the law, and draw them up a lease. Have them go to the property and have them call the police and say, hey, the property owner kicked me out. I have a lease saying that I could be here too. So now you can literally have someone squat on the squatter. The police are going to show up and say, hey, you can't just lock this person out. They have a lease just like you. Just like the landlord can't lock you out, you can't lock out the other tenant. And then the squatter's like, what do you mean another tenant? I'm in here by myself. And they're like, well, not according to this paperwork. And when the squatter tries to plead their case, they're going to tell the squatter the same thing they told the landlord, which is, this is a civil matter. You cannot lock this person out. I've done this before. Me and my friends, we all walked in the house. My Airbnb where these squatters were, well, was one squatter where they were at, and we all sat down together. And I let the squatter know, once it gets dark around 8 o'clock tonight, it's going to get real weird in here. You can call whoever you want to for help, but I'm going to wish you good night. I'm going to want to tuck you in too. We're going to play some games. It's going to be fun. You like 4? What about Twister? It was about 2 a.m. before the squatter decided to grab all their items and evacuate the property because they knew they lost at their own game. You have to be ready to go all the way or just give up. Stop doing property, stop doing real estate, stop doing business. If fear of getting in trouble is going to stop you from getting things done, then don't do anything. Give up. But I'm not the type. Most people are not the type. If we're going into a new world now, you're not going to be able to depend on law enforcement. You're not going to be able to depend on the police. You're going to have to depend on yourself. If you're a woman, get a husband, get a boyfriend, have somebody else with you. Everyone's going to take advantage of you because they see you as weak. There's really not much you can do on a physical basis. You can't pull a weapon out and you can't threaten these people, but you have to be threatening your demeanor. There's a fine line you're going to have to ride, but you'll see what mistakes she made. We'll finish going through the video.
I never gave her any tenancy. I never gave her a lease.
Roshane tried everything, gave her a 30-day notice to vacate, called police, went to court, and even offered Romero $2,500 to sign a paper admitting she's not a tenant and to get out.
And see, that's the thing people don't realize. You didn't give her a lease. It doesn't matter. The courts don't know who's lying. So many people lie about everything. It's not just the squatters lie. The landlords lie too. And the police are put in a really tough situation, and so are the courts, because when the squatter shows up and says, hey, this person wrote me a lease. Well, what if somebody spoofed your address, put your place up for rent? The people saw the advertisement, showed up, gave them the deposit. Then they paid to rent your Airbnb for a week. They keep the first and second month's rent deposit that they paid them, and then they just pay for your Airbnb for a week. So you got these people in there. These people are staying at your house thinking that they've rented it for a long-term lease. Then you show up in a week like, hey, it's time for checkout. And they're like, what do you mean checkout? I've actually paid the realtor. I'm renting this house. So sometimes they really did get scammed, but you're also being scammed. The people have already paid 2 months rent. They paid the first and the last month's rent deposit, and the scammer is gone. Changed your phone number, took down the advertisement. You weren't paying attention. You didn't know somebody else was renting out your house. And then because they see, this is what they do. They'll find a property on Airbnb and they'll look to see what the owner looks like. If you're a woman or if you're white, they know that you're going to be afraid of getting in trouble. You're going to be afraid of someone calling you racist, and you're just not going to have the physical manpower to physically do anything about it most of the time. People are looking at your profile, your history, and they're gauging to see how much you have to lose. Now, these squatters are not dumb. They're just opportunists. Are they willing to risk their lives to steal someone else's property? Absolutely not. Are they even willing to risk grave bodily harm because they chose the wrong landlord to go after? Absolutely not. They do pick their targets. You just don't want to appear to be the weakest link out of everybody to choose. But they'll find your house and they'll send you a reservation request from an Airbnb profile, and they'll say, let me rent your house for a month. They'll pay you a part of that deposit that the tenants paid them and the person to move in. So they have paperwork, you have no paperwork, but you're the homeowner, and the police are in the middle. They don't know who's lying. They don't know whose paperwork is fake, whose is real. There's no handwriting samples for you to do. So now we have to go to court. Technically, if you have the right type of lawyer, you can keep pushing the court date back for 6 months. Depending on where you live, you can push it back 10 months like this lady's doing. The mortgage still has to get paid. You cannot turn off the utilities or electricity or anything, or you can be sued for that. And the police can make you turn it back on. So it's a really risky business every time you rent out your property on Airbnb or even rent it out to a tenant. Anybody can do this to you. Yes, you can run the tenant's credit and see if they have a history of doing this. Do they have evictions? But Even if they don't, somebody can still rent your place out on Airbnb and do this. The only deterrent is fear. So you might think that you don't need men, but you really do in the real world.
Romero signed the document, but didn't budge.
And November the 15th came and she told me, this no longer works for me. Do what you have to do. I'm not leaving. I went to the police with my order and they said there's nothing that they can do, that I need to go to court, which I've done. And I do not have a court date until December the 11th.
Roshane put this sign up on her home so police and neighbors would know Romero was not authorized to be there. A sign Romero covered with a sheet.
I need police assistance.
I was there when police helped Roshane cut it down, while Romero hid inside.
It's shocking to me that you would abuse a system like that.
While all this is going on, Romero's social media shows her living her best life on trips.
Now, a typical scumbag squatter would not care that you put a sign outside of the property because they're dirtbags. So as long as they have somewhere to sleep for free, they don't care what you say or what signs you put outside. But obviously, this person appears to be a socialite, active. Maybe they have company. They're presenting this house as their house. Some people pull up to come visit you. That's embarrassing. Yes, you're over there committing a crime, but you didn't think that the property owner was going to go as far as putting a sign outside the house. That is also a deterrent. People are afraid of being shamed. They're afraid of being embarrassed. But again, it comes down to fear. People have to be afraid of the consequences. Unfortunately, the consequences for squatters does not come from the legal system. Rarely, there are times where you might get the right cop on the right day who will show up. They don't want to hear no nonsense. They'll arrest the squatter for home invasion, or they'll charge them with B&E, breaking and entering. Because sometimes you show up to these Airbnbs and you can see clearly somebody punched out the back door. But when somebody was given the code or the lockbox because they rented your place on a short-term rental platform, then it just makes it a little bit more complicated because, again, people lie. Landlords lie, squatters lie, tenants lie, everyone lies. So who's going to be the arbiter of truth? And well, that's when the courts show up, and that's going to take a very long time. How long can you afford to pay for this person to live in your property for free? Be honest with you, I can't afford 12 hours, 12 minutes, 12 seconds. I don't have the time for it. So it just depends. I mean, now I've taken more extreme measures that I'm not, it's nothing to brag about, but I was serious. You know, some of these properties we care about, we furnish them personally. We invest in ourselves, and nothing comes easy. And especially in this country nowadays, everything is harder than it used to be. So you have to be more protective of everything you have because it's hard to replace things. So.
And promoting her nonprofit. And Roshane is left paying thousands in attorney fees, the mortgage, and utilities for a home she can't even enter. I tried to get some answers from Romero, who was clearly inside the home, but she never came to the door. When a person walked out to her car, they didn't want to talk to us either. Roshane is waiting now for her court date next week, where she's hoping the judge's decision will allow U.S. Marshals to force her unwanted guest out once and for all. For now, reporting from Northeast D.C., Felicia Ashley, 7 News.
And you know what? That actually might work. You can't squat forever. There's a time limit on everything. Eventually, it'll make its way to a judge in a court. If the homeowner can prove they're the homeowner, even if you had a lease, you can still get them out of there eventually. Typically, once they know they have 5 days to vacate, they'll leave on their own. Sometimes you can just make your own notice to vacate, saying that the police are coming in 3 days, and put it with a stack of papers, make it look official, put it on the door. The squatters knows what that is. They don't want to wait for 6 a.m. on the day you have to move out marshals, police show up to evict you, they're going to want to leave ahead of time. So, I've been able to trick squatters out of my property doing that before too. You have to be creative. I mean, it's your home. And the truth is, no one's going to care more about your property, your belongings, and your bottom line more than you. The only person who's really obligated to care about any of those things is you. So, you got to keep that in mind. You can't be too nice. You can't be too liberal. You got to be serious.
7 News has been reporting on reforms to rental housing laws in the district. Back in September, City Council passed the Rental Act. Supporters of the legislation say D.C. landlords lost more than $1 billion in unpaid rent since eviction moratoriums were lifted in 2021. The measure simplifies the eviction process and allowed landlords to remove tenants who violate their leases by not paying rent. Those against the act say it takes away protections for tenants. Our investigative reporter John Barr has been following the Rental Act. You could read what's in that measure right now.
Now, I'll be honest with you. I've been in this business for a long time. There's really no right answer. There's really nothing you can do. If you make a bill like this, well, now the landlords will abuse it. When they have a tenant that they don't like, or a tenant who's paying rent late, or just any issue, they can just make up something and get this person evicted easy. But if you go the other way, well, now the tenants can abuse it and make it hard for them to evict when they don't pay. There's no perfect scenario when it comes to this, because there's too many people for the courts to be able to micromanage. And unfortunately, with everybody lying and scamming nowadays, landlords and squatters alike, because I've been on both ends, I've seen both sides, there really is there's no right answer. Somebody's going to get the short end of the stick, whichever way you go. So the reason the landlords get the short end of the stick is because there are fewer landlords than there are tenants. If you got to deal with protesters, would you rather deal with protests from 1 million tenants, or would you rather deal with the complaints from 5,000 landlords? I'd rather deal with 5,000 landlords than 1 million angry, disgruntled tenants. And that's what it comes down to, unfortunately. There's more of them than you. So do me a favor, like and subscribe, share the video. I'll be back on live in a few minutes. The Single Boyfriend on YouTube, I appreciate the support. Remember, America first, America only.
I've been needing to find a new apartment, which has not been easy with credit as bad as mine. Luckily, I found cosigning.com. They connected me with a cosigner who helped me get my dream apartment for me and my dog. I just paid a small fee and was able to move in fast. Get the cosigner you need for the apartment you want. Check out cosigning.com today.